So I'm just going to collapse this piece now. I'm pretty happy with where it's all heading. I'm going to take the symmetry off first. When I collapse that, I can just paste it back over the top. So now this is the first piece that's got more subdivisions in it. And I can start to work with some things here. I can start to bevel some edges. So I can go in here. And I'm actually going to remove this. But now I'm going to reconnect another edge loop in the center. And I can just play with extruding that. I'm going to select these two outside edges and just bevel those. And we start to create a little bit of a kind of more detailed edge there. Harden that edge off. So just before I do that, there's just a couple of things here that are looking a little bit wonky. So I'm going to select this here. And the beautiful thing is once you collapse the Turbo Smooth, you can easily go in and remove edge loops quite cleanly. So I can now select this entire group here. And if I want to, I can pull this out. And now I'm just going to go along and I'm going to remove that edge loop. So I'm just going to select this edge here, chamfer it in, scale it, and then I'm going to apply the regularize. So as I'm creating that circular inset, I'm just going to go in and around the surrounding support loop, just make some quick modifications to try and get that looking a little bit more smooth. That can sometimes just mean pulling some edges out. Okay, another thing I can do here is, so I'm just going to unhide everything. I'm going to make a small cut like so. You can see I've just cut that out. You can change this. It's quite important to get this right here. I'm going to make a cut just going back up like that. And then from the opposite angle, I'm going to continue that around like so. So when I made that cut, it will automatically select all those edges for me. So I'm just going to use the chamfer. And just, this is where it gets a little bit tricky. I'm just going to try and keep the continuity flowing around the edge. So you can see here, we've got this kind of flowing up. I'm just going to pull this back and chamfer down here. What I'm doing is I'm trying to keep these triangles away from the surrounding support loop. Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to be able to slide all the way up with edge constraint turned on here. And then just pull out slightly. If I target weld these two pieces together, down the center here, the topology may seem messy, but because we're on a flat surface, it doesn't really have that much of an effect. So that's where I can just do the exact same thing here. Target weld down here. And then the topology is looking a bit weird, but you can see the smooth, it's actually not that bad. So in here now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete those edges. Just scale this in. I'm going to shape for that like so, and we've created this nice cool inset very quickly, very cleanly. Everything's still quads, and you can start to add that detail that you're after. Okay, so once again I'm going to add another circular inset here, and I'm just going to slide this out first because I want to make sure that the polygons are as square as possible. I'm just eyeballing the scale here, but and the same here. You can see as I'm sliding that down, we're removing that kind of a shaped pinch that's happening. So I'll always do that to some degree. Now with this piece here, I'm just going to actually go in, select these inside edge loops, and just make sure that the indents of a similar kind of scale. You can see here things are a little bit off. So I'll just remove this. I'm going to make a connection like so. Same thing, I can just remove that edge loop and then reconnect. If this isn't exactly the same, you can just go in and just scale it a little bit. And then you can see on the outside though, if I just zoom to that, we've got a little bit of a kind of misalignment there that I'm just going to pull this out. Alright, so there's a little bit of detail I want to show you how to create here. Just very quickly, I can select these two edges and do a chamfer on them, like so. Now when I pull this out, what I'm going to do is I'm going to connect this inside edge loop. Now from side on, I can pull that down, like so. Now I just want to select these outside edge loops and chamfer them, giving the appearance of these two cut lines. So this is where you'll start to see that adding in all this small detail is the quickest part of the creation process. But obviously when you do create an edge loop like that, you want to make sure that things are kind of balanced, so you can pull this up. You also want to make sure this inside piece is as square as possible. So I'm going to pull that out. And then lastly, I'm just going to connect through here. So there's a support loop. And it ends up rounding a bit more clean. Okay, on this side I can do something slightly different. I'm going to connect up here, just down the center like so. I'm going to delete these edge loops. Just making sure that that's kind of, yeah, that should be good enough. But now I've got to make sure that these are even and in line, so I'm going to pull those down until they're flat. And the goal here is to create a little inset, like a little panel in between these two, you know, little, how can you call them? Little insets. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bridge those two polygons. And on this polygon here, I can now cap them. Now at this point, I probably need to go in and add another edge loop in between here, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to connect down the center, and I'm going to connect the sides. And this is where I like to use that method where I connect two and then just remove the outside loop. And this loop here, I just need to make a connection down. Like so. And now it just smooths back. So I'm just cleaning some of these remaining loops up. So you'll see in a second what I'm going to do is I'm going to target weld these up here and then target weld these together and remove this polygon here, leaving a four-sided polygon. That smooths really nicely. You can see we've got a tiny bit of pinching happening. So I can go in if I want to and make a connection across here. And I can target weld these. going to make another circular inset up here, making sure that I don't have edge constraint turned on. I should probably get in the habit, because that happens a little bit too often, I should get in the habit of looking up here to make sure. So you can see at the moment, I can go to edit geometry and take a look at the constraint, and it's on. So I know that when that's on, and if I go to regularize that, you can see it's only going to be able to snap that circular inset to the same normal alignment as like what the polygon selection currently is. So if I turn that off and then redo it, you'll see it'll be a little bit off in the scale, but that's what I'm after. And now I can just kind of do the same exact thing as I did over there. So the same connect we made along here, I'm just taking a look and I'm just going to see where I can add another one of those connections. Except this time I think I want to do it at a different angle. So I'm going to connect it up like so, and then just follow that through underneath. So I'm just preparing to create another one of those circular insets. So I'm just connecting the geometry that I'm going to use. So you can see from this angle, as I pull that in, I'm creating a little bit more distance so that we don't get that overlap happening as obvious. Okay, next piece. I'm going to collapse this one now at 1. I'm going to turn off the symmetry as usual, collapse it down, and then paste again. So the difference is here I've created some topology to work with, but I've probably got a little bit too much. So this is where you need to be a little bit more conservative and make sure you've got your edge loops in the right places. So the same inset piece I did there, I can do to this one. Just going to pull that in. And then chamfer like so. I'm going to select this inside loop and delete it. Just making some cleaning. So even though I've collapsed these main pieces and you can see the topology is more high res, now I've got a better opportunity for this inside piece to work with it and get that fitting in. So one thing I didn't like that was happening on this piece here is this kind of inside bevel. So I'm just going to completely clear that and then move everything up to fit. I'm also going to go in here and fix this up. I'm just going to give these pieces a separate color. And the reason I'm going to do that is just so I can get a bit more of a feel for how they're splitting up the different areas of the mesh. When everything's all one color, it becomes a little bit harder to distinguish like the thickness of pieces. And it's quite important that all these white bits are similar size. But there's just some rough stuff happening here, so I can just get rid of these edge loops. So I'm just creating some distance here also. So I'm going to connect two edges along here, and I'm going to create a little bit more detail on this piece. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the edge I just created and rotate it with edge constraint turned on. You can see up here edge constraint is turned on, and I'm just going to create like a little panel. So the reason I'm rotating these in like so is because I'm going to kind of pull out and then connect down there. And then I'm just going to pull these out. So now what I can do is I can select this shape here, chamfer it, basically select all these inside faces with the edge constraint turned off and just pull it down. Now I'm going to do a connect with two subdivisions, and we're just creating a little bit of detail like that into the mesh. Now on this inside piece, I can create a circular shape out of that. And maybe make a little bit slightly different detail. So on here, I'm going to make 2 connections down the center. Then I'll make another couple of connections. With all of this kind of selected, I'm just going to pull this down a bit. And I'm just experimenting, but I don't think that looks too good. So I can get rid of those edge loops. So you can see we're slowly getting there. I'm just kind of adding details as I see. Here's another cool little way I handle situations like this. So you can see I've done what I did previously with this bevel coming in here. But what I'm going to do this time is to speed things up, is I'm going to bridge the two. Then I'm going to select the border on the outside. I'm going to cap that border. Then I'm going to apply a chamfer. And using Alt, because without it, it goes a little bit too hard, I'm just sliding out here. We end up with the ability to create some nice kind of four-sided topology very easily. So all I've got to do is target weld those points. Let's just pull this in a bit. And without any work at all, we end up with a nice bevel there. If you want, sometimes like to smooth this in just to create a little bit more of a rounded kind of inset going on here. So I'm going to continue the same inset bevel that we've got going on here around this inside piece. And in order to do that, I just first need to connect an edge loop down the center. But I can also see an opportunity here to just fix up one last little pinch. So now that continues around the whole thing. I'm not sure if I want to add a circular inset here, so I'm just going to have a crack at it, and then I can always undo it if it's not looking very good. Yeah, I don't think I like it. So I'm going to collapse this piece down now, slowly getting there. So to clean up a couple of pieces, I'm just going to bring these up and then remove the support loop. So as you can see, once I collapse the mesh, the first thing I start doing is removing the unneeded edge loops. So just kind of looking from different views. You can see by removing that loop, we've created more shape and more kind of highlight there. So there's just some immediate things you can do. Now I'm going to try and get rid of this edge, but then I'm going to go back in and connect it. Create more kind of a razor sharp edge, which will give it a more metallic appearance. So I'm going to try and add some detail in here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to connect these edges up like so, even though they're going to terminate a little bit weird there. I can connect along here and get rid of these wonky edges. Now I can get rid of these edges, and you can see we've got the topology flowing up. Just going from side on, I'm just going to make sure that there's not any pinching. I'm just going to pull these in like so. Won't always work. Alright guys, I'm just recording this to let you know that this first part of lesson 10, I'm going to break off now before the video gets to the 2-hour mark, because I found that going over that can introduce problems with the rendering stage, and also our internet here in Australia is really terrible, so we've got a very slow upload speed, at least where we are in our current location. So we need to move as soon as possible because we've actually got the fastest internet available in the area. And what happened last time is the 3-hour lesson, it would get 2 hours into the upload, and then I'd start having issues with it timing out, or Vimeo was crashing, or just general problems happen over that 3-hour period that were preventing me from getting it fully uploaded in time. So I'm going to try and fix that on lesson 9 tomorrow, and I'll get the next hour of this lesson up for you guys, which goes in and finalizes the final details on the rest of the mesh.